From the southernmost point of Dorne to the lands of always winter, what is west of Westeros, and the shadows in the east, this is Casterly Talk, a special news edition, because why not? We got some of the biggest news in a while. So yes, press and pause on the rewatch one more week. Please don't hate me for that. Please don't hate me for that. We'll get to the rewatch. The show's never going away. I still have DVDs of Game of Thrones to watch, including now HBO Max streaming stuff. All right. Enough of that. I'm Ken Knapsack. And joining us today, if you're watching on YouTube, you get to see our shining faces. Or if you're listening on audio, we thank you very much. That's our preferred content spot. This is Casterly Talk. And this is Alden Diaz coming back for the show today. Hey, Alden, how are you doing, man?
Hello. Decided to take a walk on down from the wall. They said it was cool. Not breaking my vows by being here. But yeah, good to have something to actually talk about. When we texted the other day, it was, oh, wow, a date. There's an actual date. It's crazy.
The House of the Dragon release date has been revealed in, I'm not going to say dramatic fashion, Alden. I just suddenly appeared. I think I still was waking up, wiping sleep from my eyes, and tweets started coming in, you know?
Yeah, and it was funny because Game of Thrones social media had seemingly teed it up to be something during the Oscars. But I don't know, the Oscars ran 40 minutes over and, some minor things happened. And so it was like, maybe they were like, let's hold till Monday.
That would have been great advertising, though. Someone chose violence that day, and it wasn't Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. Yeah, I saw that tweet, sleep well. And, you never know. As if they're playing around, is it coincidence? Are they setting us up? Is it coming? And I wasn't expecting it, but had my one eye on it, but didn't. But here we go, a release date, and we're just going to dive right into this headline here, Alden. No need to bury the lead here. House of the Dragon tweeted out, and are you following House of the Dragon? Normally, I don't follow show Twitter handles. Alden, do you do that? Do you just follow? Hey, I like House. I'll follow House on Twitter.
Yeah, I tried not to for a very long time. I think Mandalorian I started to, and maybe I followed Loki, but it seems like now that they're dividing up the marketing, it's like, I thought I could get away with just following Game of Thrones.
Right.
But no.
Yeah. Like I follow Star Wars. I don't follow a lot of the other ones. And then, of course, it does seem like we got the sounds of dog paws in the background, which I love. Dogs.
We do. The pitter patter of a young dire wolf as he looks at me. Are you trying to do a show? Because I'm going to do this instead.
No worries. We are pet friendly around these parts. So Sunday, August 21st is the tweet that comes on out here. August 22nd on Sky TV for UK viewers. Weekly release. Now, actually, I should say, Alden, we're just kind of assuming. We know 10 episodes, but weekly release. We got 9 p.m., kind of an Eastern Pacific time. That's kind of prestige drama television for HBO. What's your thoughts on just that basic information? Some of it we're assuming. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, some of it we're assuming. You never know if they're like, it'll be a double or a triple drop because Amazon's done, I think, 3 to start a couple times, and HBO's done that a few times.
Hulu has,
So 3 to start, is that possible? Or do they know what they have here? And they're like, nah, you'll get the 1 and you'll be back. So who knows? Are they also going to embrace maybe the expanded length that they had success with during season 8 of Game of Thrones? Are these going to be long, sort of ginormous feature length episodes? We don't know. But I think that the time slot makes perfect sense. I like it. I'm excited about it. It's consistent. They own
that time. I mean, it's what's associated with Game of Thrones without a doubt. Game of Thrones was more springtime, at least in the early first few seasons there. So that just makes sense. And then, you see it's the slot right now, winning time at the time of this recording, winning time, the Laker show, which I'm loving. I'm not even a huge basketball fan. I'm a sports fan, but I love Jeff Pearlman as a writer. It's based on his book. It's a great series. And it's that I sit down and I think even I get it early. I think it's 6 p.m. Pacific here. But I kind of make it 9 p.m. in my brain. It's like I don't move off that. I can't break that habit.
You're like, release schedule different from Ken's schedule. It just has to happen at a certain time. That's true. I mean, I make tiers in my mind where I'm like, a Star Wars show I will watch the minute it is uploaded and live. But Moon Knight came out. I was like, Moon Knight I could do with my afternoon coffee. I can relax with that.
That's so funny. I always say I'm a loyal but casual MCU fan, and I'm definitely going to give Moon Knight a view because, love Oscar Isaac, but I'm also pals with his brother, Michael Benjamin Hernandez, who's in the series as kind of Oscar Isaac's double of Moon Knight. So I was like, I got to support Michael, just not at midnight. I'm gonna watch it over dinner.
Yeah, 100%. It's just about, we are so spoiled that we're having to make really nerdy decisions that we never had to make before. And that's something that we'll get into here in terms of these shows facing off. But it's going to be wild weekends.
Wild weekends indeed. And I think that right now is the big story, because Rings of Power, the Lord of the Rings show on Amazon that we will be covering here on Casterly Talk. I made that decision a couple weeks ago because I'm going to be watching. It's kind of in the same realm. I know this is a show called Casterly Talk. Thank you to Lon Harris for that name. But, it's got dragons and wizards close enough. I'm going to cover it here.
Yeah, it's close to everybody in my mother's demographic that was like, is this like a Lord of the Rings?
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's so funny. It's a circle. Game of Thrones shows up. It's like Lord of the Rings on the TV. Now Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power shows up. And it's like, hey, it's like if Lord of the Rings was doing a Game of Thrones show. Oh, my life's a circle. So here is the thing here. Yes, I just did a Harry Chapin song here. This is not quite head-to-head, Alden, but we got August 21st, Sunday night for House of the Dragon. And we've known for a bit now that September 2nd, I looked it up again to confirm, because I thought it was September 4th, which was a Sunday, but September 2nd, Friday night, Rings of Power.
Wow.
It's a fantasy nerd weekend. Friday got your Lord of the Rings, Sunday night, House of the Dragon. This is a dream, but for Amazon, and look, Amazon ain't hurting. All right. Bezos is still going to go to space no matter what. But I got to wonder, they staked their claim early. I think that's a big weekend. That's a good time to do it. I like the Friday release. I think that's interesting to me, though I grew up in an era where Friday night television was a graveyard until TGIFs came along.
The death slot.
The death slot, indeed.
Death slot, even growing up when, you and I are both wrestling guys. SmackDown moves to Fridays. Oh, that's why would they do that? Oh, it's totally the B show. Like, Fridays never had prestige, but now with Disney Plus, they had Friday with Mando, then they backed off of Friday. Now they're back on Friday with Kenobi, which is a different show. But it's interesting to see sort of the weekend becoming this spot again. Whereas networks are still hanging out on their Tuesdays and Wednesdays and stuff. So
Tuesdays at 9 Pacific, 8 Central. And so I mean, let's just dive into this here. This is good for us. Is it bad for these shows? Game of Thrones kind of sneaking in there 2 weeks prior to get 2 episodes leading up to the big confrontation. What do you make of all this?
I think it is good for us, and it has the potential to be both good and bad for the shows, depending on how. And again, it's a symbiote circle. What happens to one of you affect the other. Like, if we as the collective we. Not you and I specifically, because I know us. I know we won't do this, but if we as a people, as a TV watching people, begin these comparison conversations, and they will, that could be bad. But it might also be beneficial for people to see both at the same time, so we can definitively come to a close on some of these comparison conversations. Like, it might be beneficial for people to see high fantasy versus George's view of fantasy, and that people could say, oh, this Galadriel story arc is really adventurous and fun. It has nothing to do with any politics or anything. So.
I love that you took it there, because we talk about often here, we make reference, you, me, and other pundits on the show of George R.R. Martin's I love Tolkien, but he didn't have to write about Aragorn's tax policies. I say that so much. It's one of my favorite little quotes, kind of paraphrasing it. It is kind of the difference of the shows, that Friday nights for fun, Sunday for gritty. I don't know. But I love what you're saying there. It's these two worlds. And then that if you position it as such, and we don't know every little beat that's going to be covered in House of the Dragon, there's going to be laughter. I'm sure we're going to see some skin. I don't anticipate that in Lord of the Rings. Who knows? You could maybe position it as 2 different sides of the same coin. Maybe.
Yeah. And if I was, and again, I don't work in marketing, I don't work in PR. If I was running the Game of Thrones show, I would embrace our differences. If I was saying, hey, actors, you're going to be doing interviews, talk about the fun, the thrill, the adventure. Talk about getting the whole family together to watch our show. Because even though Jackson's Lord of the Rings got dark, that was still the kind of thing where the heroes were heroes, the bad guys were very obviously bad, and we were able to have sort of not just similar to a Star Wars or a Star Trek, like we knew what the optimism was, believing in little folk, like that type of stuff. Whereas the Game of Thrones cast members can't say that, or the House of the Dragon cast members. So why not sort of position yourself differently?
I love this. I'd love to see some House of the Dragon press where they're just like, hey, on our show, that's what we do. We just get down and dirty, and that's what we do. And they can't do that over there. Which again, I'm not anticipating a lot of sexual situations in Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. But who knows? It's Lord of the Rings for a modern era. I just don't see the Tolkien estate on any level going thumbs up to no. I just don't see it. And I'll stop using the beep button because I just think it's hilarious. But I love what you're saying here, Alden. I really do. I think if both groups are probably pretty confident in the shows they're about to put out, they have to be at this point. God forbid if Amazon isn't confident with the amount of money they spent. But I think if you're in marketing, if you're looking at it, that's probably where I would go. I'm not a marketing genius, clearly not. But hey, you kind of touched upon it. Like Lord of the Rings, where heroes are heroes. No shades of gray. We are heroes here. We fight for good. That's what we are about. And Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, no shade. There's something different. But they're both in this world, and you can celebrate all sides of it. I don't know how you get that in a tweet or a meme.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the hard part is, with what they've said about Rings of Power, like they talked about one of our crossover actors, Robert Amaro, who played young Eddard Stark, now playing young Elrond. Talk about that for a resume, like two iconic parts that you've got to be a part of. Yeah. His Elrond is being positioned as he's this young sort of shaking things up, but he's still a hero. And we still know the endpoint of Elrond is putting together the Fellowship and everything. Whereas we know that the endpoint of this particular family in House of the Dragon is, well, not great. No. Who knows down the road past Daenerys? Who knows if there are other Targaryens in the world? Who knows what might happen? But as it stands for the general TV watching public, the last Targaryen, who we followed for 8 seasons, ended in tragedy. So this show has that trajectory in the same way that we know that if they were going to do the animated Ben Solo TV series, like you have to be headed toward somewhere. And one head is inherently heading toward optimism. So it's the same way that we have Star Trek and Star Wars on TV. And every time that a show comes out, they are very firmly what they are. And I think now in 2022, we see way less of the Trek or Wars type arguments. That doesn't happen as much I know that for my age group, like that was never really a thing. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But in terms of us, we win.
We win. We win. And who knows? Maybe if Amazon is upset on any level of this kind of House of Dragons sticking in there, maybe that's the marketing. Hey, we all win. Enjoy. We're on Friday there and Sunday. We'll see you at the races, kids. I love that there. Yeah, and I love the I was thinking of what's that? Joseph Mawley, Uncle Benjen, right? He's Oren in Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Love that kind of crossover. What fun to be like I was in Westeros and Middle Earth.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see because we know sometimes casting directors are shared. Lucasfilm and HBO had similar. As the seasons of Game of Thrones went on, more and more Star Wars folks, and now retroactively, we're seeing Star Wars folks now pop up that I'm like, oh, you were. Why do I recognize you? Oh, you were in that one scene of Game of Thrones. That makes sense. That'll be piling up too. But at the same time, is this the type of thing that motivates somebody like Jeffrey Bezos? Probably.
I wish I knew what motivated him. I wish I did. It might just be money and power. No,
getting to the stars.
No, but you know what's interesting about him? I'm not here to defend CEOs of any kind, although I do love Iger to a degree. though he's off riding horses in retirement. I don't know, or planning to run for president. Who knows? I got Bezos. There's so many things to talk about. I get it, but yeah, I kind of love that he is a big nerd who's like, I must have Lord of the Rings, and we must make it the best thing ever. And I'm curious to see how that pays off at all for him. I'm rooting for him to get more money. He needs it, but you know what I mean.
Surely, the Bezoses are on hard times.
The Bezos.
Yeah, I've been fascinated by that too. In the same way that these people, as larger than life individuals, again with Bob Iger, again with someone like a Vince McMahon, that we've tracked these rich folks, and we see like a case study for him to put his fandom for Lord of the Rings and on this grand of a stage with this much money with an incomplete license. Yeah. Because he doesn't have The Hobbit. He doesn't actually have the Silmarillion, which is fascinating. There are Tolkien scholars that can break it down way more eloquently than I can, but he doesn't actually have the Second Age stuff that he's adapting. Yeah. They're using every in-between and clever legal verbiage and everything to get what they need out of it. And they're spending enough money to vitalize a small nation. Like, it's crazy.
It's crazy. But I know he loves it. I know his kids are Critical Role fans, D&D fans. The nerd runs deep in this nerd gone emperor, so to speak. Well, enough about Bezos, enough there. But I think in the end, it's good for us. It's a win. It's for all of us. And we're just excited. As we close this part of the discussion, Alden, just seeing 8/21/22, just knowing this is happening did something to me, because I've been ready for this. We've been waiting for this. I've been excited. I remember towards the end of Game of Thrones, even before season 8, someone I know in the industry was like, a kind of casual acquaintance was like, man, when this show ends, it's going to destroy all the podcasts. All the Game of Thrones podcasts are going to die after season 8. What are you going to do? And I remember thinking, not wrong. The books are still there. That's a different kind of podcast, and History of Westeros and All Shift X, all those great things, great channels and content creators that cover the books. And we talk about them here. We'll get to them when we get to them, but this is definitely show first. I always want to be honest about that. Here we are. We're not done. We got more content, and it's real now. I have a date on my calendar. I got more excited than I anticipated I would.
I did too. On those levels, on the real world levels, like my brain originally, it was the head-to-head that came to mind, and then it was and that's just these. What if Andor is scheduled for August, and then we have a Star Wars show on Wednesday, and then Friday, and then Sundays? I mean, say goodbye to a couple dinners a week because of the amount of recording that you're going to be doing. Like, that type of stuff came to my mind, but also just the happiness that I am to return to it in the same way, like we talked about Jackson, like when he came back for The Hobbit and the Hobbit trailer, I felt like I was going home. And we don't have at the time of this recording, we don't have the full House of the Dragon trailer yet. We only had that teaser, but seeing this and knowing that it's coming back, and as a fellow season 8 fan, I know that there's a little bit of that sort of like, haha, like it no matter what you said, we're back, baby. Like, and not that I'm anti the haters or that I think it's not there, but it's just gratifying to know that, okay, you took that on the chin in the public, but you're still there. We're getting this, we're getting the, I guess, Broadway West End play of The Turning of Harrenhal. There's another show that's in development. There's like rumors of the animation. So it's just exciting.
Yeah, no, exciting. And on that too. Yeah. We, I think I talked about it solo in the previous episode, but I unapologetically love season 8, but I get a lot of the discussion around it, and whether or not I agree with it or not, when someone's like, comes with good faith to the discussion, and it's like, at the end of the day, I just didn't like the way the show ended. I'm never going to try to take that away. I know you don't either. Yeah. So for those people, I'm excited. I hope they catch the fever, and I hope House of the Dragon smashes the success of Game of Thrones. I only want it to go up. I hope the shows aren't used against each other. I'm talking about Game of Thrones versus House of the Dragon. That's sometimes the nature of online discourse. I get that, but I only want this to get better. And if people are like, I'm back, baby, I'm going to be right there with them, pumping my fist going, I'm glad you're here. Get back into this castle. Let's have fun. You might have not liked 6, 7, and 8. You might have not liked 8 or the last 2 episodes, 8, whatever. Yeah. We're all here. Let's do this again. Let's go for the ride. I'm excited for that.
And Game of Thrones deserves that. I mean, we've seen that with Star Wars, where for the majority of my childhood, it was just a generally accepted fact that there were 3 good ones and 3 bad ones.
Yeah.
And that was and if you grew up during the bad ones, you had to be quiet about it, and et cetera, et cetera. And now
you shut up your love. You shut up your prequel love, kid.
Yeah, you don't know. Harrison Ford was in ours. Like, come on. And now Harrison Ford is in the little kids Star Wars as well. But it's like Star Trek had that, where people Nemesis and Insurrection, like these movies or whatever, and then that came back, and now they're in the biggest TV boom they've ever been in. So it's just nice that Game of Thrones, even though some people will stay married to this narrative, that it dropped out of the pop culture conversation, which is just endlessly fascinating to me, because that is the pop culture conversation. Inherently saying that creates, you say that in an article.
It's like anytime I see The Last Jedi tweeting on Twitter, even if it's all hate, I'm like, they're still talking about it. They're still talking about it.
That is the ultimate win for any creator in certain ways, if it's the right creator that can internalize that. But I know that, talking about Martin, talking about not Benioff and Weiss aren't involved, but talking about that team, all of them, people that are carrying over, like Sapochnik, and the people that aren't, their legacy lives on. Benioff and Weiss aren't involved, but you see that throne, that's their throne from their set. This is their world. That's their hand of the kingpin. So
absolutely. I brought the photo up here now for audio listeners. All right. So and for audio listeners, we'll make sure we discuss what we're talking about here. But Alden, let's get into the character reveals. Now, again, reveals, I'm using that word, but really we've been very familiar with who's going to be in the show, at least in the leads. But they tweeted out, not a thread, as you pointed out to me, just tweeted out.
So unnecessary.
You got to go find them. Here we go. And you run me through this, and I will bring up the photos here for those watching on YouTube. What do you got?
Indeed. So they mostly listed this conveniently, I think, in probably the credit order, because when I double checked my names and everything, it seemed to align. So that was nice, even if they didn't do a thread. So when the new theme hits, and the fact that we're going to have a Westeros show that doesn't start with our that's fascinating. Right. Maybe they'll do a riff on it. Who knows? But it starts off with Paddy Considine as King Viserys the First of House Targaryen, who presumably are lead, at least one of them. There's probably going to be a lot of co-lead type material, lots of shared scenes. So this is our first guy. Paddy Considine, of course, extremely well-known, extremely well-versed and classically trained. And I'm excited mostly because it lets me say Viserys the same way that Robert Baratheon did, as much as humanly possible. The fool Viserys.
It's also very hard for me to not look at this and just think of Hot Fuzz, which I know he's such a well-rounded actor and performer, but Hot Fuzz, man, he's so great. Love this shot. It is I don't want to dive too much into the themes here today, but you and I love themes. We love discussing the big lessons. I love doing that over on Force Center with Joseph Scrimshaw about Star Wars, and I just look at this. This is a Targaryen king who's just flummoxed.
Yep.
He's just
he looks stressed.
He's got the cat's paw. Is that the cat? That's the cat's paw dagger there, which we got a call about that a little bit later. We'll get to, but dagger in front of him, drink nearby, and just a look of concern, anger, annoyance, all of the above.
This is absolutely King Viserys on a Monday morning. I don't know if they have the same seven-day calendar that we have in Westeros, but this is their Monday. Absolutely. You can see it all over his face.
I hope it's an 8-day calendar so we can finally sing a Beatles song about it. Makes sense here. 8 days a week. All right. Next shot there.
This right here is Matt Smith as Prince Daemon Targaryen, who we had seen in the teaser, and we'd seen him in a couple shots, and he was in the majority of the set photos. People love to follow Matt around. They have ever since his Doctor Who days. Right. This is personally exciting for me because he's my favorite Doctor as the 11th. And he also, of course, famously flirted with a role in Star Wars Episode 9 that did not end up working out, but here he is, and this is my most anticipated member of the cast and character because he has the potential in his Doctor to be so ruthless, and he has a darkness inside of him. So for him to get to play with the family that is a coin flip away from madness is just thrilling.
Yeah, yeah, and as Prince Daemon here, I love this shot here. Again, you're just getting shots. You don't want to read too much into it, but we love doing that, Alden. We really do. There's just something a little swarmy, definitely confident, and definitely conniving about what's going on here. Standing, perhaps there in the throne room, sword at his chest there on the ground. Just looks like a man who's about to f things up.
Yeah, it's just got a look of signature Westerosi disgust on his face, like he's having someone escorted out and he's watching them get dragged away, something like
Yeah.
that.
Or just kind of saying like, nah, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and yeah, we'll do this Civil War thing. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do it. I got it. I got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Also,
and
just the shout out to the
yeah.
wig department as well.
Yeah. Oh, and definitely better from season 1 of Game of Thrones. More wig money here. Yeah, Matt Smith. It's I don't know if it's fair to say, but he might be the biggest name in here in terms of the nerd community because of the work with Doctor Who and some of the other stuff he's done or almost have done. Certainly, I don't know worldwide who might take that mantle for the show, but I think his name showing up is the most known by a lot of people in this space, and so I'm so curious to see him. Much like Sean Bean in season 1, I think he was the most known at that time. Correct me if I'm wrong there, if I'm missing out on someone, but I'm curious to see him in this role and how much he is going to be able to fit into this world, which I have no doubt he will.
Absolutely. So we're going to move on here to our third character in photo. That is Emma Darcy as Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen, who will be appearing twice in this list. This is the primary adult version, looking also stressed, also somber, and potentially like she's this to me, again, not we're reading too much into it, but I see like a wind shawl outfit. Is this Dragonstone? I don't know.
I've always taken we've seen some other versions of this here, even her with I think there's a shot of her, Matt Smith, out there on the beach, right? If I'm remembering correctly, I might even still have that loaded up here for those watching on YouTube. It always struck me as the beaches of Dragonstone. Yeah, absolutely. A nice stroll on a beach of dragons.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this again, of course, one of our primary characters and somebody who's going to be in the present and past of this show. So very exciting. And she has a lot of hype around her as an actress. I'm not super familiar, but definitely excited about that. As well as our next player here, another actress with a lot of hype is Olivia Cook, who as Lady Alden Hightower.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, another key role.
Big key role, yeah.
And a new family, because the Hightowers don't play a role in the 8 seasons that HBO already made of Game of Thrones. So this is going to be, for book readers, very exciting, but also very fresh for just show people.
I'd love to have, hell, we might do it here at Casterly Talk. You all can steal my idea, but just like a sitcom introduction to Meet the Hightowers. I would love a little Too Many Cooks, but with the Too Many Hightowers. I love that. Yeah, she's great. I love we got the blacks, we got the greens. Everyone's going to be learning a lot more about that if we don't know already. If you're not a book reader or you haven't read Fire and Blood, Volume 1, which I'm about to start rereading, at least the big section that the show's going to be based off, just to kind of refresh myself. Love doing that. Yeah, this is a great shot. This is a Song of Ice and Fire shot for me, and I love looking forward to Alicent Hightower.
Yeah, could be something very dramatic being said at a dinner. Something horrific could have happened. We also have in the Hightower family another big actor, Sir Otto Hightower, being played by Rhys Ifans, who people will know from The Amazing Spider-Man 1, where he played Dr. Kirk Connors, and also as Xenophilius Lovegood, one of the best Harry Potter Wizarding World names.
Yes, he does.
He was Luna's father, the editor-in-chief of the Quibbler. So he's played some weirdos. He's played some unhinged characters. And Otto, this right here, this is a planner. And you could tell he's got the hand of the kingpin. He's got it in his eyes.
He does, and I think we have another shot from the first stuff a while ago of the hand of the king there, the sigil there, the little pendant, which anytime that's on, that's someone's a lot of pressure, but a lot of planning and a lot of ideas. I love this, and Rhys Ifans says, in saying Matt Smith might be the biggest around. Rhys is someone I've known for a long time too as an actor. I think everyone knows him. And in Harry Potter, it's a big franchise. People have seen that. I just still think he is such a good actor that he still falls into that character actor category, which might not be 100% accurate. And I'm excited personally for a performer like him to come into this world and then blow up even more. I think of Charles Dance, someone who's been around for a long time. People knew Charles Dance, big roles all through the 80s, and here he comes in, and now he'll always be known as Tywin. But I love kind of seeing performers just who've been working so hard for so long hit this level. All these performers are like that, but Rhys Ifans is Otto Hightower. I'm personally excited for that. I don't know him. I got no skin in the game, but I'm excited. I'm happy for him.
Rhys, come on the show. We know you're watching. He seems like he'd be an interesting guy to hang out with. He's Rhys Ifans has sort of a kind of like a rock star actor reputation. Yeah, he's got into some scuffles at a Comic-Con or two. So I'm interested to see what role he'll play. Also as an ambassador to the show, but I'm glad they locked him down. Yeah. Here in the notes, I described this one as the romance photo because it's one of the two pairs. This is Steve Toussaint as Lord Corlys Velaryon and Eve Best as Princess Rhaenys Velaryon.
Yes, and I forgot I hadn't loaded that one in, so we're live. I'm live and loading in here on StreamYard. Thanks, StreamYard. There we go. Yeah, great shot. Boom. Love it. There you go.
And this is just I haven't seen his performances, but you could see the talent coming through, and I'm just immediately invested, and I want them to be okay.
Yeah, you want them. I'm rooting for these crazy kids. Yep. No, I'm so far looking to Corlys in the show here, and this shot, it's this balance that this show has to make, and I've been talking about it a lot, and I'm going to keep talking about it. I keep saying it's like that presidential candidate that's running, but kind of has to attach to the party before him or his party, but not to the candidate before them, which happens, or, anyone running for office. That's going back to our discussion of up top of fans who might've been disappointed. This show has to be like, we are of the same world, but different if you didn't like that.
Yeah.
And it's
we support the platform. The agreed upon platform, not the individual policies.
Yeah, and this shot, I look at this shot, and it's like the detail, the costume design, the lighting, everything about it makes me go, oh, hey, if I didn't know, if I was just running through the galaxy with my head in the ground, I'd be like, oh, they're doing a Game of Thrones show, and I think that's a good thing. So, but new character.
And I need one of our eagle-eyed viewers to tell me if that chair is the chair that Peter Dinklage dragged around the table in his passive aggressive small council moment. This armor and this shot that you pulled up is fantastic on Corlys. It's excellent look.
I pulled up the shot that one of the shots of Corlys and company storming into court there from the earlier reveals. So good stuff there. All right, next up
here, we've got the flashback duo photo, which is, we talked off air, the casting of these time periods is wild because these two young women look just like their adult counterparts. This is Millie Alcock as Rhaena Targaryen and Emily Carey as young Alicent Hightower. This is them as young women, teens. I'm not sure if they're teens or early 20s in this photo, but opens up an entire conversation, and I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, look at that casting.
That's crazy. They look the same.
Rhaenyra Targaryen just looks the same. Did they go back in time? Magic. I love it. Looking forward to that. We'll have a question a little bit later about the shot and how much the show will be going back in time, whether it's episodes completely set back there, flashbacks. We'll be talking about that here at the end of the show. Next up, you got this great shot here. I love this shot.
Yeah. This is Fabian Frankel as Sir Criston Cole, which might be my favorite of the names. I love saying it.
Oh yeah, Criston Cole. That is a great Song of Ice and Fire name, World of Ice and Fire name. I love this shot. I had in formatting it for the for the YouTube view. I wanted to pull out and get as much as that armor as I could. That, talk about looking like the world we love and looking like the show, the costume design, production design we're familiar with. This is a 100% nailed it reaction for me.
Absolutely. It's extremely lovely. This guy, Fabian Frankel, looking like a young Eric Bana. Actually kind of looks just like Eric Bana. But he's got his ties, and we'll talk about that on future episodes, I'm sure. He's got his ties to the Dornish. So that's very intriguing. And I'm super excited to know more about him.
Love that.
And then our last one, this is probably the other actress of note, is Sonoya Mizuno as the mysterious Mysaria, a one-named character, not dissimilar to our Melisandres and Kinvaras, although not rocking red. She's rocking this white garb here. Sonoya Mizuno was in Devs. She was in Ex Machina. She was also in Crazy Rich Asians. So she's been on a steady rise in Hollywood. So excited for her.
Love this character. This is a character that becomes kind of a queen of whispers, so to speak, mistress of whispers, to be more exact, and falls in, of course, with Prince Daemon and everything going on there from Lys. This is. I don't know with George involved to some degree. Again, he's been very open that he, I think, kind of wanted to be more involved this time around. We'll see what that means. They've already changed the look of this character, which I agree with greatly. So we'll see how much they hold to, wiki information that you can just pull up. But this is a character that has one of you mentioned Melisandre, a favorite of mine, but also Baelish and Viserys and Varys, I should say, not Viserys. That just has that, working the machinations, working the angles, and potentially a breakout favorite for me, I think.
Yeah, those are the characters that, that isn't that the discussion, right? We talked about when we talked about Lord of the Rings earlier, when we were all of us, everybody watching Casterly talk, when we get people into Game of Thrones, we all said some version of it's fantasy, but it's also kind of like Sopranos and like kind of politicky. Right. And and that was always something that I said. I was like, Mom, it's not Lord of the Rings. It's like The Sopranos, but just like in that time. And these characters, those conversations, Chaos is a Ladder, every small council meeting, like that's the stuff that HBO was able to bank on. And, nudity and violence. But it was as nudity and violence either got more selective or decreased.
It did.
This was the stuff that carried on. So
and I think House of the Dragon has a different starting point. We are in a different era where Game of Thrones is made into late 2000s, into the 2010s, released 2011, and I think our expectations and what you could not get away with, like I'm rooting for, but just like TV watching has changed. The society has gone through great changes in the last 10 years or so, and so I think House of Dragons has a different starting point where they probably can't. Who knows? Maybe they can, but they can't just throw up a sexposition scene and not expect it to cause some sort of reaction that might not all be positive. I think they've done a better job. You can always improve, but I think they've done a better job of the diversity of casting, very clearly making a strong strides there. But I'm wondering about that. How much? I know there's going to be violence. We got dragons. They're violent, when pressed. I want to defend the dragons there. But I don't know. We'll see how much sex will sell in this show. I know it's going to be there, but I don't know if they can rely on it early like Game of Thrones did season 1 and 2. And I don't think they want to.
I don't think they want to either, nor should they. It's amazing how much societal growth gets fit into very small amounts of time now. Yeah. Where 2010 and 11 feel like different eras entirely for so many different things. Man, it's absolutely wild to see that the way that those things have panned out. You talked about representation. It starts, with the top where now you have Miguel Sapochnik, who's a man of color, stepping in to a leadership role. Even that has, the domino effect of I'm not saying anything about Benioff and Weiss's character, but it's your lived experience, and they're white dudes. So as that starts to expand a little bit more here and there, we're seeing that with all our franchises. That is an important thing to do, and shockingly, these fantasy worlds represent our own, which is a thing.
And I'm here for it. I'm here for it, Lord of the Rings, and I know the people in the social media and marketing for these shows are probably dealing with a bevy of comments that are not not coming from a great place. But I love what the show's already doing. Even the writers' room is looking a little bit more robust. So I'm excited for that kind of stuff there. I think it's important, and I think it all looks so good on screen right now. Cannot wait to get a full trailer. That's going to be a lot of fun here. Before we get out of here today, Alden, we get to do what I love doing via Anchor. In fact, you technically, I think, made your debut on the show with calls into Anchor back in the day.
That is true.
So look at you. Now you and your dog, for those watching on YouTube, this is the best shot ever. The reason the pitter patter has stopped, if you're listening to the podcast, is now you have a dog on your lap, and it's the greatest thing ever.
Are you done? Yeah, this is for sorry, audio listeners, you don't get to see this little dire wolf face. Yeah. Mr. Attachment Issues over here wanted to be part of the conversation, so he's going to sit.
We got some calls here, so I'm going to play them one by one, and then we'll get to our answers here. And if you want to call in with a message, I'll tell you at the end of the show. First one coming in here.
Hey, Ken. It's Thomas calling from Texas. I just wanted to get your opinion on what you think would have happened had Natalie Dormer not wanted to leave the show. Margaery is always one of my favorite characters, and I wonder what would have happened if she had taken Olenna's advice and went back to Highgarden, or if she had stayed and worked something out or saw Cersei's plan earlier. I just always wondered what you think might have been the opposite ending for her had things played out a little bit differently.
There we go. You and I are both fans of Natalie Dormer, both fans of Margaery Tyrell. This is a great question. Thomas, thanks for calling in with that one. This is a big what if. We love the what ifs in Game of Thrones. The what ifs have a big butterfly effects attached to them. So let's start with this, Alden, that he's addressing something that's been out there. It wasn't like a giant demand from Natalie Dormer, get me off the show, but she was done. Yeah. She wanted to move on. And as the Julian Glover, Spicel, they kind of talked him into come back one more year. And they kind of, if I remember paraphrasing in my mind some of the conversations that she said she had, but like, I think they said, hey, just stick around, just give us one more. And they wrote her out in an amazing way. I love the ending as much as I love the character and did not want to see her die. I love everything about that. But that's something that when you're having these nerd discussion on these podcasts, we don't factor in the actor wants to go.
Yeah, they have lives, they have careers and jobs, and sometimes you get lucky and you get somebody that falls in love with that role, and their fandom of their part becomes a motivating factor. Sometimes people are cashing checks, and that's okay. That is the business that they decided to get into. That's the case with many roles and many things that we all like. That's the case with I think about. And it's on different levels too. Sometimes you get a Stephen Delane who's with Stannis, who was like, I am a good actor, and that's where it ends. I'm not. But then sometimes you get people that are in the middle, like John Rhys Davies as Gimli in Lord of the Rings. He loved being Gimli, but he wasn't going to go get the group tattoo with the rest of the cast members. So it just depends. And I think it's totally fine. That's what she wanted. She crushed it. She never, ever even came close to phoning it in. She's wonderful. Yeah. And I think her ending's brilliant, but it's an interesting what if Margaery had survived.
Big what if. So she survives season 6. Let's say she gets out in time. Let's just keep it relatively the same. Cersei does blow up the set, but Margaery escapes. Maybe this happens. What do you think? Goes back to Highgarden? What is her reaction to Cersei now as the queen? What is her reaction to Daenerys showing up and saying, I'm the king? Or what is her reaction to Jon Snow coming down? Number one, is she like, hey, what's up, Jon Snow? Or two, is she like, you're saying what now? And does she believe Jon Snow? Where do you go, Alden, with all this?
That's the interesting thing, because initially I started to consider, that would add Margaery Tyrell to Daenerys's alliance of Varys and Olenna and Ilaria Sand, but do we really know that? Does Margaery have more resistance since she quote wanted to be the queen? Does that mean that she would have maybe said, you know what, Grandma, I'm going to take the A position on this one, and I disagree with you. I don't want to do this. I want to be a neutral party. Does she try again, like you're mentioning with Jon, if she is there for Daenerys's group party, does she say, Jon, why are you looking over there? You got I got a legitimate house right here. Someone with some sway. I got lots of grain and plants. Why don't you forge Stark and Tyrell together the way that maybe had been flirted with? So
I'm a Vestal virgin. I swear, John. I totally swear I'm a Vestal virgin.
John,
marriage has gone wrong. It's yeah.
Yep, it wasn't my fault, John. None of them were my fault.
I love what you're saying, because yes, that's my first thought is, much like her grandmother, she'd be like, oh, great, we're going against Cersei. We got this powerful force coming over from the east. Let's do it. I think there's a part of Margaery that would do that, and her hatred for Cersei would lead her that, but she's so calculating, and that was part of the tragedy. She gets caught into prison and the High Sparrow and everything, and she essentially is almost, to me, she's like almost worked her way out of it, almost there, and is at the end one of the only ones to realize we got to get the hell out of here because something's going on. So we know she's got the brain power, she's got the skill, she's got the cunning, and she does have that drive for power. How much would it be, Alden? Okay, I'll throw my money in behind this Dragon Queen, but then I can't imagine her staying in that position once Cersei was erased. I'm not saying she's trying to kill Dany but I can't imagine she'd be like, great, I'm going to go back to Highgarden and you run things from here on out, Dany.
Yeah, I don't imagine that being a relationship that, maybe not for lack of trying, but I see that being sort of the Sansa Dany dynamic a little bit as well, but without the you're my sister, give her a chance. It would probably be a little bit more explosive than that, because Sansa did not have her sights set on the throne in the same way that Margaery did. So you have two people that really have the queen title in their sights, and that's going to be a little bit explosive. There's the elements of Tyrion there. What's the relationship going to be like with Tyrion and Margaery as Dany's hand, given everything that happened with her and two Lannister Baratheons up to that point? It's just a very, very messy situation, and messy in the best way. I would have loved to have seen it.
Would have been wonderful. Yeah, would have been wonderful. And sorry to cut you off there, but I do look to the north. I do look, and she doesn't even have to know that Jon Snow is a Targaryen, right? She doesn't have to know that. It wasn't key to that side of it, I don't think. I think she just would have seen Jon and been like, all right, that is where I'd like to go. And I'll partner with him, and I'll be the queen, he'll be the king, whatever. I'll be in power. He can go off and brood, and I'll run it, and we'll take out that Dragon Queen. My big question too, then, and you can pick up on that, is we know Margaery does love the small folk. She does have a care and concern for the people. She's great with that. The whole Lady Di, Princess Di kind of comparisons. But I've always wondered, it's also, she's doing that as a smart play. She knows that she can, if she wins the heart of the people, she might be able to get to the throne even easier too. So Jon comes down and goes, all these people are going to die if we don't do this. How much of it is Margaery going, oh gosh, we definitely have to go there? Or how much of it is going, maybe we should go up there and save the day? And that might help my position too. I don't know, because this
I
is
wonder
the
about that
duality of Margaery.
I wonder about that too, because it's possible to care about something and still exaggerate your position on it, or take advantage of it's not dissimilar to people that go to impoverished nations but then post about it on Instagram. It's like, yes, you did the good thing. You did. Influencer. No one could take that away from you, but you also felt the need to be seen doing it, which is a little unnerving. But I think about those Northern Lords. I think about the way that they reacted when Dany rolled in, there was so much of not of course, because of the burning of the Starks and everything that had gone down. That's, and going all the way back to Torrhen Stark kneeling, which was a talking point with Jon and Dany. Of course, it should have been. There's an animosity there. However, if the three of them had rolled in, or if Jon and Margaery had rolled in on horseback, I think a lot of those Northern Lords would have been like, Snow, well done, Snow. Like they might have been like, now that's a queen. That's somebody that could sit in Lady Catelyn's chair. That's somebody that, we would have been proud to have Robb with, or anyone else with. Jon, she better that she's with you than with Renly. Like it, I could see the North reacting to her in a way where it could help all parties.
Yeah. The North is prickly, so they still might have some issues. I get it, but especially it's not a foreign born You know, it
Mhm.
isn't that dragon lady. Oh no, no, no. And I think that could factor in. And I love the duality of Margaery's character. I love that. I think she is of a good heart, but her high ambitions, she has them
Yeah.
clearly, and it's a power grab, but it's a lesson of when you grab too far, what happens. And fascinating. That's a great question, Thomas. I love that. And yeah, if any Natalie Dormer in Game of Thrones is a good thing. So if we got one more season or something, if she maybe it's one more, Alden. Maybe she comes back for one more. What ending in season 7? Where does she go? Is she taken out by Euron Greyjoy, a dragon, a White Walker? How would you want her to go out if she has to go out in season 7? Is she on Snow Team 6 going north?
Well, that's the thing. Like, there's so many situations that we already had that you could put her in.
Yeah.
And my initial gut instinct was, well, I'm assuming she wouldn't leave her grandmother's side, and maybe she would die when Jaime and Bronn took Highgarden. But at the same time, I also wonder if she would have faced the Varys fate, because if she whispered something that Dany didn't like and that Dany perceived as traitorous, maybe she's standing right there during Drogon's big meal.
Okay, I actually think that might be more. You're right. Does she might, if she's in Highgarden, she grabs a sword and stands between her grandma and Jaime, and I don't know if that goes well for Margaery.
Yeah,
I don't know what Jaime does. That's that's a wild what if. But yeah, I do see her if she's there with Daddy's party. The moment if Varys comes to her and goes, John might be a blank, and she's like, wait, now what now? I want in, and then that I could see it, Drogon taking care of Margaery there,
especially because we had that Varys and Tyrion conversation on the ship where they're talking about, but do we marry them? No, she would dominate him. That. If Marjorie's on the table, Varys could be like, there is another attractive young woman in our camp that and Tyrion could be like, oh, it's not bad.
A golden rose does cast a big shadow. Love to see that. Great stuff. Great question, Thomas. Love that there. All right, next call coming on in here. We got one of our favorites. He's been a mainstay here for such a long time. Love having him around. Eric Monroe calling in now.
Hey, Ken and Casterly Talk. So I want to talk a little bit about, the books and George and excitement and all that. So I will admit there was a time I was a little grumpy with George because I want to see what happens with the books. There are characters that exist only in the books that weren't on the show, characters that are still alive, like Stannis in the books that died on the show. And I think George Doe deep down knows that it's important to us. So I am a believer that the book is going to come out at some point. I know some people disagree with me, but I believe in George. I believe the books are going to come out. And also, we all have to appreciate George R. Martin, because without him, we wouldn't have any of this. We wouldn't have Game of Thrones. We wouldn't have the World of Song of Ice and Fire. We wouldn't have House of the Dragon coming out. We wouldn't have the greatness that is Stannis Baratheon as a character to cheer for and root for and learn from. So in the end, I am a big George fan.
Absolutely. I'm with you, Eric. A big George fan and a big Stannis fan, as everyone here knows. I was talking about this a little bit last week, Alden, so love to get your thoughts here, where, I too, over the years, have found myself, I don't know how to explain it with George, a little grumpy, a little like, George, you're a little bitter. You're playing some games with the show. Get in there and write. But also, I'm so just appreciative of this world that I just fell in love with in 2011 and keep diving into even more and more. So your thoughts on this, and just, when are we getting Winds of Winter? Give me the prediction. I know you have the answer.
My Winds of Winter prediction that I genuinely predict is that, and I have no evidence for this, I think that Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring are one book.
Okay.
I don't think that was always the plan. I believe wholeheartedly that Dream of Spring was going to be a thing. I know that some people that have paid way more attention to his blog and interviews over the years have pointed out that he has said that Dream of Spring was always going to be tiny, that it was always going to be the shortest book. It was always going to be sort of an epilogue.
Right.
But I think that at this point, Winds of Winter might be a tome, and that it will have a Dream of Spring as the epilogue or as the last chapter or something like that. That's what I really believe. Okay. What I want is for Winds of Winter to be released in airports without any press whatsoever, somebody gets a coffee and then goes to the paperbacks and sees
What is that?
winner.
The Hudson
Viral
News,
marketing.
yeah, the Hudson News. There, we're just like, let me get a Better Homes and Garden for their flight there. Oh my gosh,
that wins.
Wins a
Yeah, that's
winner.
what I want. I want it to be a viral release that is all word of mouth. But really, when it comes to George, like I have accepted in my life, and I've embraced positively that some of the older folk, particularly older men that I've either looked up to or been influenced by, have idiosyncrasies, we could say, or quirks about them that are just funny. You look at someone like Stan Lee. Stan Lee, may he rest in peace, who we all loved and adored, also took credit for way too many things and inserted himself in way too many things and screwed over people. And like, so I would always make jokes while he was still alive. Like, I'm Stan and I created you. I created your mom and dad. Like, you know, and then you look at someone like George Lucas, another older George. It's like George has his things. He has his interviews that don't line up at all. He has his views. He has his, you know, the theories that he has. Disney agreed to never release the original cuts. Like, all of these people, especially in that generation, have, or in Stan's case, the generation above them, have that stuff that they won't budge on. And for George R. Martin, it is his slowness and his easily distracted nature. And I think that he likes being a rock star author because outside of him, She Who Must Not Be Named, and Stephen King, there haven't been any since the days of, I don't know, Oscar Wilde, like F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
So I think that he enjoys his celebrity. I think he's entitled to that. And I finally have come to accept it. I think during the show, I was more like, come on, dude, don't let them outpace you. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Don't let them outpace you. Don't let them finish and control your narrative. But now I'm also like, oh, well, I'm excited to see the alternate version.
Yeah, I really, I mean, I'm with you too. And a lot of when I describe it as grumpiness, it's all out of love because I just wanted to finish the damn books and finish the story and all those good things. But I'm so excited for the other things he's involved with in this franchise, in this universe and world. But yeah, it was a little bit of like, I thought he was playing little games with the way he was distancing himself from the show, and that helped some of the discourse go negative fast. And but he's entitled to that, and he's so he is fascinating. He is a rock star author, and he says sometimes that's, hey, that's affected my life, but it's also affected positively. So I think he's been honest with it too, and I'm with you on that. But at the end of the day, Eric touched upon something that I just I've talked about and think about, but I really love that Eric kind of highlighted it. Is like, it is an alternate of universe, like you just said. It is another story. It's the same kind of world, but there's a lot of characters that from season 1 of Game of Thrones we knew we weren't getting. You could tell the show needed to do what it needed to do. And so all these characters with outcomes still yet to be determined, or people who are alive, the Stannises and the Barristan Selmys, who we either haven't gotten to that part in the show where we're still behind on a lot of Stannis stuff, and then Barristan Selmy, they go in a different direction. I to think of it in those terms, that more than anything is why I'm really looking forward. And whether it's your theory of 2 books squeezed into one giant book that I'm going to need a back brace to lift, or a surprise release in Hudson News, I'm good for all of that because I want to see those stories.
Yeah, and ultimately, you know, with the 2 books being one, like, I just can't imagine that after being hounded about Winds of Winter for all this time that he wants to then be hounded by Dream of Spring the next week. Once people finish Winds of Winter, it will start. So that's why I mostly think that. But I also think that, I've come to terms with, and really, if that happens, everybody, give him time. Like,
give him a month. Give him a month.
Let him enjoy the press tour for the book. But I think that, and I've said this before, I think on this show, on my Star Wars podcast, like, growing up a comics kid trained me a lot to where, you know, I've joked about this, like, sometimes a great writer will be like, I'm starting Batman. This is my big shot. Like, I'm on the book now. And then whoever's writing Justice League, like, kills Batman. Or like leaves him on a different planet. And you just have to accept that sometimes things get messy. So I long ago accepted that the show was going to be its take on his work. It is not going to be the one-to-one of his work. Now, if somebody one day was like, hey, we got the license to, the Martin estate, 30 years from now, we're going to do the animated version that'll have every detail.
Yeah.
Rock on. Do
Rock
it.
on. Yeah.
But as for this, it was Benioff and Weiss working with an incomplete story, and that will always be the truth. And that's what happened. And that was the agreement by all parties. And they had notes. Who knows what was in those infamous notes? We can safely assume that King Bran was one of them, because that's kind of been said. So. Yeah. But outside of that, we don't know. So
we don't know. And we might never know. And you just scared me realizing, all right, 30 years from now, if they do an animated retelling, okay, I'll be doing the podcast pushing 80. All right, that's fine. I'm game. All right, I'm game.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start doing more push-ups. I'll be around.
Yeah, man, you got this. You got to come out of retirement.
I wish I had a retirement. All right, final question is our friend Donald Long, Ranger Donald, calling in here.
Hey, Ken and Casterly Talk. Just wanted to call in and talk about the pictures that we got today with the announcement of the release date, especially the young and grown-up versions of Rhaenyra Targaryen, who look great in my opinion. And in my eyes, I think they're going to be the real standouts of this series. And then I'm real interested to see how they play with the time frames of this episode of this series, because in the original series we just got flashbacks here and there, very few of them, especially later on in the series. So I'm wondering if they're going to have one episode in the past, one in the present, or flash back and forth with this. And especially with King Viserys picture we got today, if you zoom in, he has the cat's paw dagger. We know that's going to play another very important role in this series, because we've seen in the last show Alden Hightower try to stab somebody with it. And the last we have 3 dragon eggs. We have a red one, a black one, and a green one. All different have different cracks. What dragons are these random pictures of dragon eggs? Thanks.
Great stuff there. And Donald reached out to me in my Discord, which you can access through my Patreon page, and said, I realized there's actually 5 dragon eggs that came out if I read his message correct. So I lost track of it. For me, there was 1. I didn't count up to 5 or 3, Alden. So I don't know if you did. Great stuff from Donald. Yeah, and he kind of agrees with us. The casting is great of the young and old characters. But this is a great question. This is that term flashback, or is it an episode set back in time? You and I covered and loved Book of Boba Fett. I did on Force Center. You did on your Star Wars podcast, Octo Radio. I know a lot of people strong opinions about the use of the preview, whatever the different timelines. We'll call it a Book of Boba Fett. And one of the things is people will say, the flashbacks. I don't think it's correct to view them as flashbacks. I thought it was 2 stories set in different times for a while on that show. Which again, you might not like that. I'm not asking you to like that. I'm just saying I don't think it's similar to using the Blood Raven Three-Eyed Crow there to take Bran back and serve as a flashback. I think it's a little different. So great question, great thoughts from Donald there. But what's your thoughts on how they're going to use this young and old timeline bits here?
I love what you said just then about what is a flashback and what isn't. Because I think that as we start to expand TV, and as TV has gotten more and more premium, to the point where you could argue that we're in the age of it, and that it might be America's medium right now. And that's a much bigger conversation. But as we've started to expand things, Book of Boba Fett's a great example, because it did 2 things that were sort of not new formatting, but experimental formatting, especially for Star Wars. They were doing things like, okay, let's do the dueling narratives across timelines. Let's do changing perspective episodes where Din and Luke will have theirs. It was an interesting sort of way to tell the story. And flashback inherently to me implies a character looks back on the event and then we come back to the present. That's why it's called a flashback. It's not called a long back. It's not called an extended back. It's a flashback. It's supposed to be, wait a second, Ken dropped the item over here. Like I solved the mystery. That's flashback. I think that visions are also their own thing, because that's a narrative device happening in the present. Where you see the past. That's Bran seeing the Tower of Joy. That's Harry looking in the Pensieve to see Snape's memories. That's a lot of the times in Star Wars, Rey and Cal Kestis with psychometry and how they touch things. Like, that's also different. And then there's also the third thing, which is the dueling narrative, which is, are we watching, are the characters thinking about the past, or is the viewer getting to see the past?
Yeah.
And those are different things. If we get to see these two young women to benefit us, the viewer, that's different than if Alicent stops and says, that time where we did this, that's a flashback. So they're just, we're living in a weird time of verbiage. And like some people will call that semantics. I just call it the different approaches. And they'll land differently for different people.
No, I get if anyone wants to throw semantics back at you, or I get it. And even in Book of Boba Fett, Boba Fett would take his little back to baths and he would essentially have these dreams that we got to see. But I like the dueling narrative topic there, or phrase, I should say, on this topic. And in terms of the show, I think it makes some sense because, to what degree magic is involved in this show. We got dragons. We know magic is present to some degree, has to be there. That was part of the thing with Dany bringing back the dragons, the House of the Undying, as the return of magic. I love that stuff. So we got some magic going around. To what degree, I don't know. I haven't even, to be honest, haven't thought much about that, Alden. Yeah. So could magic have anything to do with going back, or is it just dueling narratives? Maybe episode 2 is let's get you all set up on what happened here. And I'm interested. Do you have any preference?
I think that
just a complete episode or going back and forth.
I really like the dueling narrative stuff of building to a point, narratively building to a revelation, building to a theme, and giving the viewer exactly what they need to get to that conclusion. I think that Book of Boba Fett Chapter 2, The Tribes of Tatooine, is a master class in getting the character what he needs in the present and showing us what we need at the time. I think that Damon Lindelof's work on HBO's Watchmen is also a master class in that, in terms of how we're able to bounce back and forth. I don't need the character to stop and think. I don't need somebody to say what happened that day and then it flashes back and then we cut back. I don't need that. I want it to happen to create the story, because it's a visual medium, and I think that the more that we push and bend TV, the more we'll accept it. Again, Star Wars always comes up with us because we're both, that's such a core element of our lives. But when people were saying it's Book of Boba Fett, you can't do it in an episode, you can't do half an episode with Luke, and I'm like, you can't until they did, right? And they did. And you can't is just a thing that you say until someone tries it and it succeeds. Because now in Mandalorian season 3, or if in House of the Dragon, they cut over and it's an episode that's all in Winterfell with whoever is the Stark Lord at the time. Someone out there knows who the Stark Lord would be at the time. I don't. Then it's like, you can't do that. Well, they did. And we're bending TV and we're changing the way that we tell stories. And so I'm all for that entirely.
I'm with you on what you're saying here. Why not is something we talk over in Force Center a lot, which is big in Star Wars creating. Well, why not? Why not do this? And I agree with you. Are there rules that can't be broken? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think you should have any rules. There's technical rules of how to get your shots lined up and all those kind of things and angles and 180 degrees, all that kind of stuff. When it comes to writing, I think you're right. We are in an era. The old, and I always do the Wayne's World thing of the old, I remember Alicent when she was a girl. That's outdated. And we are in this, been a decade now, going back to Game of Thrones, even prior to that with Lost and Sopranos. But we are in this decade plus now of big time premium television changing the name of the game. Back in the day, back when I grew up, there was no screen actor was going to go on TV. That was a sign your career was done. We don't have that stuff anymore in the behind the scenes kind of stuff. And I don't think we need it necessarily in the writing or the presentation of the show. I am open to going back and forth. I'm open to one entire episode set that back there. It just seems like might be not the way they're going to do it. And even if it is, what was Rhaenyra thinking when she was in junior high? Not that there's junior high or high school in Game of Thrones or Westeros. I'm open to it, but I think you're right. I think it's going to be inventive because it kind of has to be at this level.
Yeah, and shout out to, I wish I knew who directed that episode off the top of my head where we see young Cersei. That episode,
beginning of season 5.
Yeah, that season 5 premiere starts and doesn't tell you you're in flashback. Right, you have that moment of, oh my god, that's Cersei. And I think that when you can have the viewer not know where they are for a moment and then tell them that, oh my god, that's blank. Right. That moment is powerful. And that can also help you with your with your expansion of the themes of the story. I think there's something to be said for disorienting the viewer on purpose. I don't want to spoil anything from Moon Knight, but that's a huge part of Moon Knight is you see some scenes and then you're like, wait a second, was that days ago or was that now? And to do that with across years and in this story, I mean, you want this world to expand. You want this world to be different. I've said this about Star Wars fans. I've said this about a lot of people, and I'll say it for Rings of Power when that gets covered. If you want these things to grow and change, when they grow and change, don't be surprised. And they're going to have to throw things at you in different ways. And it's when people break those rules that we get really excited. I mean, that was the whole thing with Clone Wars, which was 2008 starting on Cartoon Network before the big TV boom. You know, when Kevin Spacey went to House of Cards, that was kind of the big, like, whoa, is TV serious now? And it had been building with Breaking Bad and Sopranos, but going back all the way back to Clone Wars, George, with his cartoon show, with his apprentice with the cowboy hat, he was like, what if we made this like cinema? Yeah. And what if I told you no storyboarding? And what if I told you you're going to block this like I block actors? Yeah. And now we're all the way ahead in this time. And it's exciting. I would love it if, I mean, I'm not saying they will, and I know it piss a lot of people off, but I'm all for the, Buffy the Vampire Slayer was like, what if we did an episode with no talking? What if we did an episode that had songs? What if we did an episode that was in black and white? Like, do anything you want.
The House of the Dragon musical coming. And we do want to shout out, you mentioned it, The Wars to Come is season 5, episode 1, written by Benioff and Weiss. They don't know stories, right? And Michael Slovis is the director. That was his debut for the series. And I love that. And I was also, Jodie May, I'm the Last of the Mohicans fan. Jodie May is Maggie the Frog. I was excited about that. And interesting moment. And also, we'll get to that when I get to that in the rewatch that was the episode that I realized, wait a minute, I was familiar with the prophecy. They cut half of it out. What does that mean for the show? And I stopped holding on to book stuff as tightly as I had been before.
I mean, I was that person.
They go with this. Yeah.
I was that person that was like, but the Valonqar. And then I also was like, in the back of my mind, like, hey, they didn't actually do the Valonqar. So you can't hold that again. And again, that's like canon and legends, that's like you sort of have to have that mentality, even if it's painful. Like what they established in their world is what they established in their world. I mean, and it also this was the show that from the very beginning was like, hey, the other and all the rules for the villains, we're not doing that. We have a very different force. We have a very different magic rules. We have very different, sometimes even the geography is off. And so it's like just for better or worse, case by case basis sometimes, but overall, I think we see for better. But that's just you and I and your dog here today. So that is our discussion today. Alden, it's always great to have you in here. Tell them where they can find you, and if you like listening to Alden talk, or if you hate listening to Alden talk, he's got a podcast for you covering Star Wars. That's true. And if you hate it, I don't want you to review it. If you love it, I would love for you to review it. That's Octa Radio, a Star Wars podcast. That's everywhere you get your podcast. That's one-on-one interviews with me and people in the Star Wars space. Ken has been on a few times. He's going to be on again soon. We have people from Lucasfilm, people from the fandom, authors, people that are contributing to the Star Wars galaxy in different ways. And then we have our 2 sister shows, Mandatory and Creed, hosted by Tori Fox. That's where all our Boba coverage is. And then Rewatch Between Worlds, where we're going back through Rebels. And then I'm appearing all around the internet. I do radio, broadcasting stuff, things like that. You can follow me on Twitter at Alden Diaz and Instagram as well. ThatAldenDiaz.
Let's do it there. We'll have Alden back real soon here on this show. Thanks for everyone who's been waiting for Casterly Talk to return. We are back. You can subscribe to our YouTube channels. We try to grow that out, but I always love podcasting, always love talking into microphones, whether the cameras are rolling or not. So thanks for listening to the podcast side. You can find it on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I said earlier, you want to know where you can call in, like Thomas, Eric, and Donald today. You can do so via Anchor. You can go to Casterly Talk on the desktop. The best might be just on the phone. If you favorite the podcast on the phone app for Anchor, on the phone, like it's, get your rotary phone on your smartphone. You can then call in pretty easily. You have 1 minute to leave a nice message, and I can download it, put it on the show, and I love hearing your voice. It is what makes the show so fun to do, going from the Daily Thrones days to now. You can follow me at Ken Knapsack. Go to my website, kenknapsack.com. If you love music, I have a show called Pop Rock and Radio on Mixcloud, live music show, a radio show from the days of old. If you like rock and rock pop music, check that out. We'll be back soon and next time here on Casterly Talk.